Welcome to the Red, White, and Blue Show with the Patriot Ben Garcia as your host. I want to welcome you to our 5th episode. Thank you very much for joining us. I hope that you go ahead and download the Rumble account under Freedom Not Tyranny, who the host is for that show, David Torres. You will find my shows right there in that Rumble account. Also, I want to go ahead and remind you, I'm a big advocate for our U.S. Constitution. Please go out there and purchase both in English or Spanish the Constitution of the United States from the National Center for Constitutional Studies. That phone number is 800-388-4512. And please remember that today many of our VFW members are Vietnam veterans, and our World War II veterans are disappearing. Numbers are getting smaller, and the VFW is a significant part of our American history. So I want to ask you to go ahead and just go join to be a veteran of foreign wars, and you can go on to vfw.org, and the national contact number for them is 816-756-3390. And once again, the internet address is vfw.org. They've got assistance there. They advocate. They have media, events, and it's a special community. So please go ahead and join and try to make a difference in your community. And it's important that you take a look at joining the VFW, especially our Veterans Foreign Wars. I always like starting out by reading a verse of the King James Bible that I have. And what I want to go ahead and reach out is talk about is Revelations 22, and the title, The Water and Tree of Life. And I will go ahead and start out on verse 13. I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, the first and the last. Blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have right to the tree of life, and may enter in through the gates into the city. And I read that because we are coming to a brand new year and an ending of another. And our country is under incredible duress. And it's important that we look forward and really take a look at Scripture of this upcoming year and take a look at the past events of this year. So I'm going to be reading many stories. And let me tell you, I spent many hours thinking about, do I give a top 10 list of the ending of a year here in 2021 and the start of a new one. And there's just so many stories to take a look at and reflect on. And I'm going to go ahead and start reflecting on some of these stories, and I will be doing much of the reading right out of the story itself. So I'm not going to put a whole lot of thought. I'll just basically be saying whether I agree or not. But this is going to be an episode where, as the host, I'll be doing a lot of reading and reflecting on what the article may say. So I want to go ahead and start out with the first article. And this is on Representative Mary Salazar. And this was from Fox News. And I'm just going to go ahead and read this. Representative Maria Salazar says Democrats failed the Hispanic community. We are Americans and we're not socialist. By Lindsay Cornick. Fox News host Trey Gowdy invited Representative Maria Salazar, Republican from Florida, on Sunday night in America to discuss the changing political appeals of the Hispanic community. Recent polls have shown that Hispanics are now split evenly between Republicans and Democrat Party, according to the Wall Street Journal. Support for the Republicans and Democrats are an even split at 37%, and 22% responded that they were undecided. Miami Herald op-ed suggests Florida Omicron outbreak because of Governor DeSantis acted selfishly. While on to claim it to rebuke President Biden's administration, Salazar insisted that it is a sign of Hispanics recognizing the similar values shared by the Republican Party. We share same values that entrenched the Republican Party: God-fearing, law-abiding, tax-paying. Not only that, we are Americans. We're not socialist. We want to come into a country and we want to contribute, Salazar says. She further bolstered her community's pride, saying, "What do you think we come here for? Because we want to contribute. It's not because we want to go to Disney World or shop Saks Fifth Avenue. We want to come here and contribute. We know that they are American exceptionally is waiting for us, the promised land, and the economic policies that were established during the last administration helped everyone's pockets." Regarding Democrats, Salazar noted Hispanic voters are likely beginning to realize the failure. And this is what I really want to go ahead and point out. The failure of the Democrat Party to support and help their community in efforts to achieve the American dream. We have realized after 30 years, after Ronald Reagan, who was the last president who gave this community any type of legality, we are here realize after 30 years the Democrat Party has been playing political football. So I said to my community that you got to be with whomever serves your values, whomever fixes your problems, Salazar said. We come here for two things. We come here because we know this is the promised land. We want to share those fruits, and we want to have a better economy. We want to be able to go from rags to riches, which is what the American exceptionality promises. Salazar used her story as an example, remaking how her parents were exiled from Cuba 60 years ago, eventually raised a daughter to become a state representative. However, Gowdy and Salazar are recognized that Republicans have similarly failed to push the message toward Hispanic community. She called on the members of her party to reach out to those disenfranchised voters. What we need to do, we need to send the message that we want to take care of those Hispanics. We're going to seal the border because my community, and we don't want what's happening, the disarray at the border. We want to be able to come legally, contribute, and live the American dream, Salazar says. I agree with that. I agree that we want to see our border secured. I agree that Hispanics want to contribute to our community, and I know that they do. I also want to agree with the fact that the Democrat Party has failed. And you've got to go ahead and be involved in voting, be involved in your community, and have a say-so. And I can tell you for myself, who's running for U.S. Congress, 4th Congressional District, I agree with what she is saying. That message is correct. I want to see more the Republican reach out, the party itself, reach out to what is 40% here in this congressional district. Reach out and see Hispanics have a voice in our political system. A lot of promises have been made, and the Republican Party basically is the party that is delivered under the Reagan administration when it comes to being able to have a voice. So I want to be able to see that happen, and I will do that when I become your representative after November next year. Also, I want to read an article, Center for Immigration Studies. And now I'm going to show you specifically what this administration has done, and that's been a failure. And Hispanics have been used as a political football. Just exactly what Ms. Salazar had said, Representative. So, here's a title. As V. Paris punts border responsibility, Texas governor issues disaster declaration. And this was by Robert Law in June 4th, 2021. A common saying in football is that if you have two quarterbacks, you have no quarterback. For those well versed in the sport, The quarterback is the most important position, so it is essential that the team has to clear cut has a clear cut leader. If there is internal controversy over the role, the team is divided and unlikely to succeed. The same analogy holds true for border czars, given the failure of the two that President Biden concurrently tapped to solve this crisis. As my colleague Andrew Arthur discussed in April 2nd posted titled The Battle for the Biden Border Czars, the Biden administration border policy made no sense at the time given the confusion over the former Ambassador Robert Jacobson and or Vice President Kamala Harris was caught in charge. Arthur followed that on April 8th asking, what is the border czar, Kamala Harris, doing on the border crisis? The answer, not much, as the border crisis degrades quickly. Nearly 3 weeks later, Arthur noted Harris' inaction as border czar and Jacobs' decision to quit the Biden administration on its 100th day. Fast forward today, and to borrow another football term, Harris is still punting on her responsibility to develop a plan to stop the border crisis. In a recent CNN article, Harris aides anonymously insist that the vice president is not in charge of the border crisis, but instead was tasked with addressing root causes of illegal immigration from Central America. But in the same article, a different anonymous White House aide said that Harris regularly briefed on the border. Are the president and vice president not on the same page, or Harris attempting to revise the scope of her assignment? My guess is the latter because, as Ronald Morrison has rightly pointed out, addressing root causes, Harris' claimed role, is a long-term issue that has no bearing on the current border crisis. Biden's view of Harris's role, not to mention the rampant corruption and the Northern Triangle governments. Though once the border crisis is solved, David North has already developed a thoughtful plan for how Biden administration can address root causes. The Biden administration's failure to control the border has significantly burdened the states, most notably those that share the border with Mexico. At least one border governor, Texas Republican Greg Abbott, is taking steps to mitigate the damage the border crisis is causing to his constituents. On May 31st, Governor Greg Abbott issued a disaster declaration certifying that ongoing surge of individual and lawful crossing the Texas-Mexican border poses an ongoing and imminent threat to widespread severe damage, property damage, injury, and loss of life and property, including property damage, property crime, human trafficking, violent crime, threats to the public health, and a violation of the sovereignty and territory integrity. Pursuant to his authority under disaster declaration, Governor Abbott authorized the use of all state and local resources to protect the landowners in the border counties and from the trespassers and property damage, directed to the Texas Department of Public Safety to enforce all federal and state criminal laws, and directed the Texas Health and Human Services Commission to discontinue state licensing of child care facilities that shelter or detain illegal aliens. In an accompanying press release, Governor Abbott said that President Biden's open border policies have paved the way for dangerous gangs and cartels, human trafficking, and deadly drugs like fentanyl to pour into our communities. He continued, Texas continues to step up to confront the border crisis in the federal government's absence, but more must be done. Working through local law enforcement, the state will continue to take robust and meaningful action to keep communities safe. While this action in the face of federal inaction is important to mitigate the direct harm Texans are facing due to ongoing worsening border crisis, it is not enough to stop the surge of illegal alien attempts to cross the border. The governor and his attorney general have additional tools at their disposal, namely the ability to sue the Biden administration in federal court. State officials who want to protect our borders need to blitz, football pun, the Biden administration in every avenue available to compel the federal government to do its job and stop the border crisis. – Topics of border crisis in Texas. we have a lot of issues with the border, and I gotta say, drugs, human trafficking, and most importantly, our sovereignty needs to be. We need to respect our sovereignty, and we need to address those issues of drugs, especially fentanyl, you know, and many other drugs are out there killing Americans. Human trafficking is just something that we must do just to stop, you know, and we need to be able to go ahead and allow our border agents to do their job without being under duress. And this has been a challenging year. We had under the Trump administration building walls. We had border security needing what they needed to do to go ahead and prevent illegal crossings. If you want to be an American, we do have ways for that to occur, and not everybody will be accepted, but it is a process, and it's one that all must be able to follow. Open borders is not a solution. There's so many negative things about open borders. Not only that, but the loss of life for those, especially those children that, one, probably survived some type of trauma. Two, some don't make it. Some lose their lives trying to just become an American. So there's got to be a humanity side to things, but we also have to remember that we are our own sovereign country. And we can't solve all the world's problems. And at this point, we really need to take a look at finding politicians that are willing to have a backbone to solve the immigration issue, and to solving our issue of sovereignty, which shouldn't even be a question at all. Unfortunately, politicians go ahead and they just want to utilize a segment of people because some just want votes, and I will say, proof is in the pudding, and last administration that went ahead and did something about this issue was President Reagan. So, although maybe a very unpopular decision at the time, President Reagan did what he thought was right and allowed amnesty for many folks that had been here and wanted to become an American. So we've got to take a look at all avenues, but the one thing we need to do is use our laws that are on the books. Use our laws to protect our sovereignty. That's our flag right here. And yes, we're blessed if you're born in this country to be an American. But I don't take that for granted at all anymore. I hope that you choose to take a look at those that want to go ahead and make a difference, and that those folks take a look on who they're putting in at Washington, D.C., at the House of Representatives, our U.S. senators, that they're out there representing you. From the National Center of Constitutional Studies, phone number is 800-388-4512. They have both English and Spanish. Please go ahead and do those purchases. It's about 44 cents a booklet. So give them a call, see what you can do to go ahead and make a difference in your community, especially for your household. Also, I want to remind you, please, if you're a veteran foreign wars, take a look at your local chapter and, go over there and just give them a phone call or go to vfw.org. They'll be more than glad to go ahead and help you locate your local chapter so you can be part of our community and return back to the family in that aspect, because it's very few people that are able to go ahead and join that organization. I want to go ahead and move forward after I got done for the Center Immigration Studies. And I want to talk about the COVID mandates real quick. I am for the fact that, it should be a choice whether you decide to take the vaccine. That's an individual choice. Each of us, are unique in our biology. And for me, I'm allergic to certain medicines. So for me, I'm not going to go ahead and take the COVID shot. Yeah, I really want to see a proven record, and I want to see whether or not it's something down the road that shows a history of being validated, and I'm definitely against giving our 5-year-olds, our young children, any shot whatsoever until, it's been proven that it won't harm our kids. So I'm definitely not going to do that. But I do want to talk about June 22nd, 2021 press release by Mike Gallagher, a Republican in Wisconsin. And I want to talk about this because COVID has taken over so much of our lives. I can say I went to a speaking event in Redmond, Washington, and that happens to be, I went to King County, I spoke, and after the speaking event, I went to a pub. Now, I live in Yakima County. Eastern Washington's different than King County, in Washington, Western Washington. So I went in there with a friend, and we were going to grab something to eat after the speech. I go inside, and I notice there's not a lot of people around. Just a few people. I'm like, okay, it's Saturday night, and it's only a few people here, but all right. Minding my own business, I sit down, get seated, and then they bring the menus, and then they ask for my COVID card. And I looked very stunned for a moment, forgetting, I've had a long day, it's been a long drive, gave my speech, I'm just wanting to sit down, relax, get a glass of lemonade, something, get something to eat, pizza preferably, or a hamburger, and they wanted my card. And my friend and I looked at each other, and I go, no, let's go. It's absolutely ridiculous that I can't get a meal because I don't have a COVID shot. Government has got it wrong. And they're interfering way too much in our lives. And we, the people, have to take that back. But more importantly, we have to stand up and take charge and hold those accountable and hold China accountable by using any sanctions necessary. People are going to say, what are you thinking? But you're going to hold China accountable? Take a look at what we import from them. Take a look that we rely on them for all our pharmaceuticals. That is true. But take a look. The fact that they are the problem and us finding the solution on how all this got started. Take a look at the loss of life. Take a look at those that get sick. Take a look at the effect that how it's affected each and every one of our families in America. They need to be held accountable. And if they are the root cause of this, we need to take legal action and hold them accountable like we would hold any other American company that's here. And they're not company, they're a country. And so I want to go ahead and bring this up right here. This is what I'm going to read. Gallagher introduces bill to sanction China for lack of COVID-19 transparency. This is real. They're not very transparent. And they're not trying to help us understand exactly what happened here. So I'm going to read this. Washington, D.C., Representative Mike Gallagher, Republican, Wisconsin, today introduced the COVID-19 Action Act of 2021, a bill that would authorize sanctions or other restrictions of Chinese Communist Party affiliated scientists if the CCP fails to allow a transparent international investigation into the Wuhan Institute VWIV virology. The bill would also prohibit any gain-of-function research cooperation between any Chinese individuals and institutions and any individual or institution in the United States that receives federal funding. You know, these are the actions that we need to take. And those families that have suffered, that have lost loved ones, I'm more than sure that they want to see these actions taken. And we need to have representatives that speak up. We need to have representatives that are going to fight for you and their constituents. And not just stand idly by because maybe they're afraid of taking a look at their profit losses personally down over there in Washington, D.C. You know, and especially since they go ahead and they're able to go ahead and create the laws that go ahead and allow corporations or others to benefit from the laws that they make, and themselves to benefit. That's got to stop too. And there's a lot of murky, muddy, swampy water over there in D.C. And many of our representatives, you know, they have drank that swamp water and gone with the program. That needs a change. You know, so I wanted to go ahead, and we're all living under these COVID conditions, and I used my example of going to Redmond, giving a speech, and then just wanting to go ahead and really get a pizza or eat a hamburger and get some lemonade or something to drink, and to sit down with a friend, and have to show my COVID card. No, it's not acceptable. You know, and I can tell you when I get to Washington, D.C., I'm not taking the COVID shot anyways. You know, it's my body, my right, and you've got to make a stance. You know, so I do want to go ahead and bring up another issue, and it's a very hot, typical issue also. And as I started getting all these stories together, oh my goodness, it was getting juicy. But I'm going with things that people are willing, and not just to go ahead and, you know, get your base all riled up. I don't necessarily believe in that. I mean, you got to give a good speech. You got to be able to listen to your base. But I want to listen to all people. I want to be able to go ahead and listen to what they got to say. Whether you're a Republican or whether you're a Democrat, whether you're independent. We're all Americans. And, you know, government is supposed to work for you. Doesn't matter who you are. And you hope that you get a reasonable person that is going to protect our Constitution. Well, first of all, that they're God fearing, protect our Constitution, and live under the same laws that they create. And there are very, very, very few people that actually want to live under these same laws that they create. And we also have to really protect our household, our family, and what's being taught. And so I'm going to go ahead and really bring up an article. And this is something that Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is fighting for, is to really give parents a little bit more authority on what's being taught in school. And I'll just give you an idea what that article looked like right there. But parents in one state may get even more power to fight schools over CRT. New Hampshire teachers and parents sue over their state's restrictions on teaching about discrimination and social justice. This is by Matt Zallernick, December 16th issue. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has co-opted the term woke for legislation he says would be the nation's stiffest prohibition against teaching critical race theory in K through 12 and college. DeSantis on Wednesday unveiled the Stop the Wrongs to Our Kids and Employees Act, also known as the Stop Woke Act, which he says will be given businesses, employees, children's, and families tools to fight back against the woke indoctrination. Excuse me. We won't allow Florida tax dollars to be spent teaching kids to hate our country or to hate each other, DeSantis said in a statement. We also have a responsibility to ensure that parents have the means to vindicate their rights when it comes to enforcing state standards. The bill prohibits school districts, colleges, and universities from hiring what DeSantis called woke CRT consultants. It also provides parents and students a private right of action to contest CRT and strengthens the Florida Department of Education's enforcement authority. Our classroom students and even our teachers are under constant threat by critical race theory advocates who are attempting to manipulate classroom content into a means to impose one's values on students when instead schools should be empowering students with great historically accurate knowledge and giving those students, their families, the freedom to draw their own conclusions, Commissioner of Education Richard Cochran added. But few educators and higher ed experts believe critical race theory is even taught in K through 12 schools. Many see the controversy as a way for some to attack and discredit diversity, equity, inclusion programs in school. Critical race theory, in fact, is a form of critical analysis taught largely in law schools, graduate schools of education, and sociology as a way to understand racial justice, Georgetown law professor Gary Peller told district administration in July when the controversies over CRT in K through 12 first arose. It emerged to expose deeply hidden forms of systematic racism. Our more formalized methods of segregation ended during the civil rights movement, but it does not teach that all white people are oppressors, Peller said. It is being used as a broad term for anything to do with teaching about racial dimensions of American history with the diversity, equity, and inclusion training. Peller says, a co-editor of Race Theory, the key writings that formed the movement, if it were being taught in K through 12 schools, it would be because for a wild celebration. Earlier this week, members of the New Hampshire chapter of the American Federation of Teachers teamed up with parents to file a federal lawsuit against the state's device concepts, laws that restrict how concepts such as discrimination, diversity, bias, and social justice are being taught. New Hampshire uniform education standards require public schools to teach about intolerance, anti-Semitism, national, ethnical, racial, or religious hatred and discrimination that have evolved in the past. Students must also learn about controversial events from multiple perspectives. But the new law enacted as a part of the budget bill this summer is so hopelessly vague and broad that teachers are now forced to legally interpret these seemingly contradictory directives, the AFT New Hampshire Shore says. This law has created fear among teachers who are not accurately violating any New Hampshire law, but fear that they could be targeted without evidence by people with a political agenda. The AFT New Hampshire President Deb Howes said, educators are terrified of losing their teaching license over simply trying to teach. This is something I never thought would happen in America, Howes says. Ryan Richmond, a plaintiff in the suit and a high school teacher in Painstown, New Hampshire, questioned how under device concepts laws prohibits. He said his students can examine the Nazi philosophy of Aryan racial superiority and the history of slavery in the U.S. or the treatment of North American indigenous people by the conquistadors. I asked students to discuss events in the news and their connections with the past, Richmond said. 9 times out of 10, they want to discuss stories about oppression and how they've observed or experienced it. Teachers in New Hampshire may be right to feel threatened. In November, a group of Called Moms for Liberty offended a $500 bounty to anyone who reported teaching promoting CRT. It's on Twitter feed. The organization has prompted firearms training in school, also criticized restorative justice for a high school poster that said 5 races, 112 gender identities, 4,200 religions, one heart. What I want to say is the Department of Education is responsible for this controversy. When you have teachers that minimal have a bachelor's degree and probably pursuing a master's degree, have this much trouble interpreting the law for them to be able to teach our children and understanding what the learning objectives are, it's their own fault. You have parents concerned about what's being taught, and we should always welcome the parents to be involved, period. You know, and there should be no threats. There should be no issues in the sense of violence. I don't agree with any of that. But I want to let Governor DeSantis is doing the right thing. He's going to go and allow the parents to take legal action. And obviously others have taken legal action in other states, which is great. Because what they feel needs to be taught, it's not clear. It's not clear to the educators. It's not clear to the state in charge of the education program. And teachers feel threatened about losing their jobs if they're not teaching appropriately. Take a look at your teachers' union. Take a look at your representatives. They're the ones who put that together. I don't think anybody's questioning the fact that, you know, in our American history, we've had challenges, you know, to civil rights. But what they're questioning is the process of how you're going about it. And if you're wanting, and what fear I may have is taking a look and saying, you have what all these years of having someone advocate for civil rights and then having reverse racism. Acknowledge our American history. I don't have a problem with that. But when you become so biased that we need to go ahead and go to court to decide what you're teaching is right, because you're putting your whole complete philosophical beliefs on certain aspects and changing history, you know, and for our students, especially today, to worry about hating someone for the color of their skin, let's we have to be very careful. These are young minds, and it's very difficult sometimes to, even for adults, to go ahead and absorb all of our past. But we also have to embrace what's great about our country. You know, you don't have anywhere else in the world where you have so many different cultures, so many different types of people, and you're not going to please everybody. You're always going to have somebody that's going to be upset. But this is a great country. And, you could be a perfect person. You could do the right thing all the time. Doesn't mean the right thing's going to happen. And then you have a news media, and sometimes you have government folks that want to go ahead and sensationalize things because it's politically sound or makes money or it's what the news wants to put, for a headline. There are a lot of things that aren't put out in the news because it gets ignored on both sides. Whether, you could take a look at, let's just put MSNBC or Fox sometimes, and I like Fox, but you've got to be able to weed out some of the biases on things and take a look for yourself. And I'm willing to weed that out. I also want to go ahead and move on. Crime's on the rise. Fox News, at least 16 cities record homicides. Well over a year ago, we're taking a look, at George Floyd, what happened with him, unfortunately. Rest his soul, but there's a lot of issues that occurred. And I'm not a supporter of George Floyd, by the way. I just want to let you know, because there's a lot of things, both from law enforcement to his end of his demise too. But there was so many protesters, and not just protesters, but people creating violence in so many cities prior to the 2020 elections, and chance of defunding the police, cutting funds, forcing officers to go ahead and review their careers and deciding that maybe this isn't for them anymore, to get out, and not getting the community support. And that's very unfortunate. And I'm a big supporter of the police and law enforcement. They need all our support. So I want to go ahead and talk about where we're at right now. And, this has been a very hot issue. At least 16 cities see record homicides in 2021. This is foxnews.com. And I'm going to read this article. At least 16 U.S. cities have set new homicide records in 2021, according to local police departments. It's a trend police departments have noted from East Coast to West, even as other violent crimes such as aggravated assault and nonviolent crimes such as burglary decline in the same areas. It's definitely worse this year, for us at least, Rochester Police Department Public Information Officer Carlos Alvarado told Fox News Digital of the upstate New York City's homicide numbers for 2021. Police officers investigate, just to give you an idea, I'm just going to read through that real quick. Police officers investigate shooting in backyard party on September 19, 2020 on Rochester, New York. Rochester has been, excuse me, Rochester had seen a record 80 homicide deaths in 2021 as of Tuesday. The city's previous record was 69 in 1991, Alvarado said, adding that the number will easily be higher than 80 before the new year. 12 major Democrat controlled cities break homicide records following historically bloody 2020. But Rochester isn't alone. At least 15 other cities have experienced record homicide rates this year, including some cities that surpassed the record setting years in 2020. Number 1, Albuquerque, New Mexico. Homicides in 2021, at least 107. Previous record, 93 in 2019. The Albuquerque Police Department did not respond to inquiries from Fox News, but its city's homicide numbers from 2018 were listed on the website. The 2021 numbers is easily a record for the city, according to the Santa Fe New Mexican. Number 2, Atlanta, Georgia. Homicides in 2021, at least 150. Previous record, 145 in 2020. Homicide numbers in Atlanta in 2021 reflect a 30-year record. The city saw 241 homicides in 1990, according to a report. Number 3, Austin, Texas. Homicides in 2021, at least 88. Previous record, 59 in 1984. American murder rate increase in 2020 has no modern precedent, crime analysis groups finds. Number 4, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Homicides in 2021, at least 115 unofficial. Previous record, 110 in 2020. Columbus, number 5, Columbus, Ohio. Homicides in 2021, at least 179. Previous record, 177 in 2020. The Columbus police did not respond to inquiries from Fox News. The Columbus Dispatch reported on November 24th that 179 homicide records so far in 2021. That makes this the deadliest on record. I want to show, families. This is real. People getting murdered. Families suffer. The loss of life. It's hard when you see people losing their lives for probably no good reason at all. Nobody should get murdered. Mothers of murdered Columbus children stand at the intersection of a High Street and Broad Street while holding pictures of their deceased children. Number 6, Indianapolis, Indiana. Homicides in 2021, at least 258. Previous record, 233 in 2020. Number 7, Jacksonville, Mississippi. Homicides in 2021, at least 129. Previous record, 128. Jacksonville police did not respond to inquiries of Fox, but WLBT reported on November 29th that the city's 129 homicides this year surpasses the last records of 128 in 2020. Number 8, as defund the police movement trickles down from big cities, small town America pays the price. Number 8, Louisville, Kentucky. Homicides 179 in 2021. Previous record 111 in 2016. Macon, Georgia. Homicides in 2021, at least 52. Previous record 48 in 1992. Number 10, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Homicides in 2021, at least 190. Previous record 186 in 2020. Number 11, New Haven, Connecticut. Homicides in 2021, at least 25. Previous record 23 in 2011. The New Haven police did not confirm records earlier in 2018, but the last records appears to have been 23 homicides in 2011, according to New Haven Register. Number 12, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Homicides in 2021, at least. This is just unbelievable. At least 524. Previous record 500 in 1990. Portland, Oregon. Homicides. Number 13, 2021, at least 84. Previous record 70 homicides in 1987. Number 14, Rochester, New York. Homicides in 2020, at least 80. Previous record 69 in 1991. St. Paul, Minnesota. Number 15, homicides in 2021, at least 35, previous record 34 in 1992. Excuse me. Number 16, Tucson, Arizona, homicides in 2021, at least 92, previous record 79 in 2008. Minneapolis crime spills into neighborhood towns under attack by mobile criminals, mayor. Other cities like Houston, Texas, Oakland, California, Greensboro, North Carolina, and Memphis are also nearing record homicides in 2021. Houston has reported 456 murders this year, 9 fewer than the record at 465 in 1992. Oakland has reached 131 homicides this year. Its record stands at 148 in 2006. Lisa Diado, a former lieutenant from the New Haven Police Department and assistant dean and director of Center for Advanced Policing at the University of New Haven, says experts initially linked rising violent crime in 2020 to the pandemic, but as the deadly violence has persisted in 2021, experts are looking deeper for more answers. When crime started spiking, myself and many others thought it had to do with the pandemic, Dadino said. People were cooped up and lost jobs, the psychological toll and the pandemic had on everybody. Everybody was affected, and I definitely think that's a piece of it. But I think we're at a point now where it's much bigger than that. In Connecticut, life has gone back to quasi-normal as after the pandemic, but violent crime is continuing, Dadino said. Also, fentanyl overdoses become no one cause of death among U.S. adults ages 18 to 45, national emergency. So, those are some of the numbers, what we're looking at in our crime. When people were out there chanting, out there supporting to defund the police, and I'm not saying that sometimes some reforms need to happen, but our police officers are there to serve and protect us citizens. When you get carjacked, or you have a break-in, or you have a domestic violence issue, or any other issue, you have to call 911. And, you're going to want to have a good relationship with our law enforcement. And I support our men and women in blue. They have a tough job. But if you really think you can do better, go put on the uniform. Go ahead and go put the uniform on. Put your money where your mouth is. And go do it. I support the police. It's something I don't want to do personally. Because a long time ago I had a talk with someone, and they made me take a look at a different perspective of being a police officer. And that individual is right today. And I'm going to get ready to turn 50 years old. And I had that discussion at the age of 21 with that individual. And he was a combat veteran, that talked about the difference between going to Vietnam and if you ever take a life in combat to being in a local community where people know you and people trust you. And if you took a life, you affect that community. And you're living in that community basically the rest of your life. And so sitting back and talking to that individual was very good for me, because especially when you take a look at what's happening over the past few years, you never know what may happen. You never know that there may be an action that forces you to go ahead and take a life. And there would be a difference between taking life in combat overseas and fighting for your country to taking a life here with people you know and affecting yourself, your family, and those around you in your community. So understand that, a lot of these law enforcement officers, you know who they are. You see them shopping. You see them as part of our community, which is awesome. But they have a hard responsibility to use their discretion and try to use our laws for the right reason. So no one's perfect, but I can tell you one thing, I do completely support them. And the next part, we're talking about safety and the consequences of defunding the police. And I'm going to really rush through this real quick. And that is, this is from the Hill. And you've got two representatives, unfortunately. Representative Mary Gay Scanlon, from a Democrat from Pennsylvania, was carjacked at gunpoint. And I'm really going to make this real quick. At FDR Park at 2:45 p.m. You know, she was carjacked. Also, and she's a House representative. I'm glad she's safe. I'm glad her family's safe. And that's first and foremost, I want to point that out. You know, we do need to rely on the police. We do need to have them out there in our community. There's so much violence out there. But defunding and pointing fingers at the police is not the solution. You know, I will support them. Also, Democrat State Senator Kimberly Lightford was also carjacked out of Chicago. I'm glad once again that her and her family are safe. You know, but we have criminals that don't care about the law, and we don't have harsh enough consequences. At times, we don't utilize it. You know, nowadays you can go ahead and you have nonprofits that bail people out for felony crimes such as murder. You know, everybody has a right to a lawyer when you're especially talking about crimes such as that. But you know, doesn't mean you have the right to be out on bail either. You know, and those are decisions that you hope that a judge takes into account to whether you're innocent or not. That they look at everything possible, saying, you know, each case is its own case, each individual. You don't want to take a look at race. Justice is supposed to be blind. You know, you want to take a look at the facts as you get ready to determine what bail is. And it's not an easy job to do, but you take a look at facts. You put race, all that aside, and you take a look at what the facts look like, and you let justice take its course, whether you agree with it or not. But there's got to be consequences when people go and commit murders and whatnot. I want to also say real quick, and I'm going to go by much of this. We know about the GOP slamming President Biden for no federal solution and yet having these mandates. You know, I was going to talk about that. It's a no-brainer, you know. I want to really talk about also real quick. There's 3 articles I want to touch base on before I go over my time. And this is local politics in my area in Washington State. The local politics Seattle Times. From incarceration to Washington State legislator Representative Tara Simmons hits her stride for first term in Olympia. Well, she was convicted of a felony and whatnot on a few aspects. She got her life together. I'm definitely not going to agree with what she's doing right now, but you know, she's a lawyer, mother, former nurse. So now she's a state legislator, and this is her quote: "I believe in a society that believes in the power of redemption. Murder is murder no matter where the bullet comes from, but Locking young people up and throwing away the key is not the answer. You know, you're a lawyer and you're a former nurse. I can tell you I've lost members of my family members. And not just lost family members, but others that have been shot with a 45 round, spent weeks in the hospital trying to surviving. And I've also had friends that served our country and were shot in the west side of Washington state and survived. I honestly completely disagree with what you are talking about trying to stand for. It actually makes me want to puke. When you try to take a life, you've shorted people's family members, that mother, that father, whoever it may be. They were an essential part of our community. They were loved by somebody. And you just taking, with that statement, murder is murder? You have no idea what you're talking about. You make me want to puke. I'm just going to be honest. You really don't. You made this statement, and you're a lawyer. You made this statement. You're acting, you are caring for those that broke the law. You're caring for those that took a human life. You shorted that person's life that was the victim, and then their families have to live a life without that loved one. But also, even if you weren't murdered, you got to live with that traumatic injury if you survived a drive-by shooting. You ever wake up near somebody that's had post-traumatic stress disorder, severe, and see what it is for them to have to return back to normal and what they go through? You know, I'm glad in some aspects you turned your life around, because I want to see people have a second chance too. But you're talking about taking a human life, and it sounds, this quote, I believe in a society that believes in the power of redemption. Murder is murder, no matter where the bullet comes from. But locking young people up and throwing away the key is not the answer. No, the answer should be that individual that committed the crime, that knew it was wrong, that did the drive-by, should be asking that family for forgiveness and find the Lord. Not finding a lawyer like you that doesn't care about human life. And you're a representative. That's the problem with what's wrong with America. People like you. I gotta say, take a look. This is who we're talking about. That's your quote. That's your representative here in Washington State. And anybody that has a problem with that, well, you know what? I'm sorry. But those people that go ahead and just take a life just for a drive-by, I go, you defend yourself, you protect your family. But there's never a reason for you to take a life, especially for something like a drive-by. It's ridiculous. I want to talk about two more items. And I'm going to have to hit this subject later because I don't got much time. In October, these right here. Liberation newspaper of the Party for Socialist and Liberation. These were posted in my local hometown. Right here. Signs posted. They were torn off. These are challenges today. Rants about socialism, how great it is. Yeah? Why don't you take a look at some of the infamous people of socialism? Fidel Castro, Cuba. Nicolas Maduro, Hugo Chavez, Venezuela. Yeah, those are your heroes? People that go ahead and kill others for destroy dreams, destroy lives, destroy families? You support that? That's why you're doing it late at night, because you don't even have what it takes to go ahead and have a conversation with someone like me. I feel free to welcome that conversation. But I want to go ahead and close. And unfortunately, like I said, I could have done a top 10 list, but there was so much information out there. I do want to go ahead because this is a local individual, and I'm going to read this story. His name was Alex Antonio Acosta, and he happened to die from injuries attending a rap star Travis Scott's Astroworld Festival at Texas. You know, it's sad when somebody loses their life and someone's moving forward, going to college, and just wanted to go and have some fun with some friends, probably. But I want to go ahead and talk about this individual a little bit, and many respects to you and to your family, you know, and those loved ones, because there's nothing I can say that can make a difference for the pain and suffering that you have today. But I do want to go ahead and bring this up because I'm going to read this article because you're local, and it's sad when someone loses their life for going to a concert and security breaks down, whatever the case may be. The courts will make a determination on what's going to happen. All right. This article, Yakima County man killed in Astroworld concert tragedy. GoFundMe page raises $25,000 for a family to travel to Texas and pay for a funeral. This is November 8, 2021. I want to show you the picture of the young man. Young man, real happy, going to college. Family members have identified Yakima County resident Alex Antonio Acosta as one of 8 people killed at the Astroworld Music Festival in Houston, Texas on Friday, just a little over a week after celebrating his 21st birthday. Acosta was among approximately 50,000 people present when a crowd surged toward the stage during rapper Travis Scott's performance. Dozens were sent to the hospital, and 8 people between the ages of 14 and 27 lost their lives in chaos. According to the GoFundMe page, which is go to the GoFundMe page if you want to go ahead and make a difference for Alex Acosta. Set up by Acosta's aunt Cynthia Acosta, the family became worried Friday evening when they were unable to get in contact with Acosta. She wrote that Acosta's phone was put in the lost and found at the concert, and he did not check back in his hotel. After numerous calls to the police and local area, the family determined Acosta was the unidentified 8th victim in the incident. The family called to identify Acosta's body, but since they were out of state, were reportedly told that they could not do anything until they run fingerprints. As of just afternoon Monday, on the GoFundMe page, Acosta GoFundMe page, they had raised more than $25,000 of its $30,000 goal, and the money will go toward paying the family's trip to Houston to identify Acosta's body and bring him back home, along with funeral expenses. We are desperately trying to get the first flight available to head to Texas to bring him back home and be with his family, Cynthia Acosta said on the GoFundMe page. If anyone's willing to donate, it would be greatly appreciated. Acosta lived in Tyatin, a small town of 1,195 residents among 18 miles. Excuse me. 18 miles northwest of Yakima. He graduated from Highland High School nearby Cowiche and was studying at Western Washington University. So, you know, it's sad to say we lost a young member of our community, apparently under chaos that happened and unfortunately at Houston, Texas at the Travis Scott concert. So I will say right now he does have a lawyer representing him out of that area. I wish him and his family the best. And as I get ready to sign out, I do want to go ahead. We have a conclusion to 2 wars, OIF and OEF. And as a combat veteran, I do wear my shirt. On Fridays, we wear red. Remember, everybody deployed until they all come home. So that's why I'm wearing a t-shirt today. To all our men and women that sacrificed their blood, sweat, and tears, all gave some, and some gave all. You know, and I'm gonna conclude, and I didn't hit on that, is the Biden administration's failure with Afghanistan and all the equipment that they left our enemies. There's got to be accountability. And when I go to Washington, D.C., I'm not going to promise you arrest like some other people are running. Richard Nixon didn't even get arrested. But I want to see and hold those in charge, and that's generals, those in the intelligence agencies. I will do everything in my authority to hold you responsible for the catastrophic failure of aiding our enemies. That I will promise you. I will not rest when I go to D.C. So, this flag I swore to protect, and shame on you, and shame on our president. I'm going to go ahead and get ready to go. God bless you. Read your Bible. Rely on your family and friends. And elect a patriot like me to make a difference. God bless you.